Bill Hulsupple, and his first show was Summer and Smoke. Now, I didn't read for that, but I did co-head the props, and there were plenty. And one of the people in the show who worked on the show was Annette Martin. She was also in Dark of the Moon, by the way. Then the last show of the season was Taming of the Shrew. Bill Work directed it, and I played Baptista. Marshall Borden, whom I mentioned before, he was in Cyrano. I don't know if you knew him.
I know of him.
But he ended up going into professional theater and married Lee Meriwether. So, they're still married. But he played the lead, and he was very good. And here's some pictures of, and I recently added these. These came out of the Aurora. And so I went through all of my college and high school yearbooks. I thought, well, there are photographs of the theater things that I probably don't have. Well, it's true, I didn't have that one. This one, I think, is the same, but, and I recall this Shakespearean costume, the pants were too big, so I had to have a huge safety pin holding them up, and then one of the scenes in the party scene, everybody is laughing, and I laughed, and it opened the safety pin, and it scratched my ribs, and now I didn't have a disaster, but I mean, the rest of the show I had to sort of keep an elbow close in to make sure they didn't fall down. All right, then we had the 4th annual banquet, and this year was lucky again. I got the Best Supporting Actor award for Preacher Hagler. And then in the fall of 1960, which was the last year, for the first time they offered a course in Shakespearean reading, a 3-hour course. Dr. John Sargent taught it, and that's all we did, was read Shakespeare aloud. And there was a festival up at Central Michigan, and he took 2 of us from the class to do readings. I was one of them, and Annette Martin was the other. That shouldn't surprise you. And at the end of the day, they were interested in preserving 4 of the presentations to use in their interp classes. And so they selected 4 of the readings that were different from each other, and I was fortunate they selected mine, so I got that on tape up there, and we both got citations up there. All right, we opened the season here in the 60 with Tea House of the August Moon. I was not in it. I worked stage crew. Here are pictures again from the Aurora, which I did not have.
So when they would open up shows and whatnot, how would that process go about whether you were going to be in it, whether you were going to be behind the scenes? Like, was there a rotation? Would you try out? Sometimes you got it, sometimes you didn't.
I only read for one show here that I wasn't cast in, and I told the director there was a role I did not want to play. And that didn't leave much else.
Yeah.
Because if there was any role that I might play, it was probably going to be that one.
Right.
Actually, it was Reverend Weinmiller in Summer and Smoke. And the reason I didn't want to play that role is I had already played it twice. I didn't want to play it a 3rd time. I did it, well, actually I had done it at a semi-professional group in Detroit called World Stage, and I played it there, and that was only a couple of years before, and didn't give him any options. And he was directing this, and I chose not to read for it. But I wanted to work on the show, so I worked stage crew. The next show, the 2nd show of that year, was Cockadoodle Dandy by O'Casey, and George Bird directed it, and I was in that, and Leona Polonsky choreographed a dance that we all had to do. In fact, we opened the show. Well, we didn't open the show with the dance, but there was a dance, and I opened the dance by going downstage center and doing a double leg heel kick to the left and to the right. And it was a long dance,
Right.
as dances go. I mean, it was 3.5 minutes long with all kinds of steps. And I had sore knees at times because of it, but did it anyway. And there are some pictures of, and this is from the Aurora again. This one is the same, but that one I didn't have. This one we got a couple of places. And it was a fun show to do. And after that show is when I directed this one act. It was an original one act written by a friend of mine who was living in, I think in California at the time. He ultimately moved to England, and it was called Watson, and it was a short one act. But I asked Bill Work, I said, you know, after we did the 3 one-acts on the Quirk stage, student directed, the next year they took the student directed ones off of the major bill, and there were no provisions made for student productions that year. And I said, well, I'd like to direct one. Remember, I think I said the wall of 107 could be removed and the steps going up so there'd be a stage in that old classroom, 105. So we staged it in the round on the main stage. And you know, here's a picture of the main stage. And so I got to direct that show that year. Now the next show was, well, where is it? I slipped over something here.